Please turn the webcast to start the broadcast of this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel, Braintree District Council Committees. This channel has been set up to ensure that the public can watch our democratic meetings. Please therefore remember this meeting can be watched at any time by anyone with an internet connection. There is a delay between the meeting and the broadcast of approximately 30 seconds. Webcasting officer, please commence the broadcast and confirm.
Sorry, Emma, just having a slight technical issue.
Okay, thank you. If you can just give an indication when you're ready to proceed, that's great. And just in the meantime, Councillor Swear has joined us, so can I just test Councillor Swear's connection to the meeting, please?
Good evening, Emma.
Thank you very much. That's nice and clear. So members, we just wait for the confirmation from Dan that the YouTube broadcast has commenced.
Emma, am I still showing on your screen as connected in as the webcast?
Yes,
I am, yeah.
Yep, you're both connected, yeah. Now we have connection of you as Dan Sayer and the webcasting streaming PC.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. Why isn't it going across?
I've just looked on the YouTube channel. It says Zoom meeting sign in. So I don't know if that helps. That's what the YouTube channel for this meeting is currently saying.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm hearing myself just say that now.
Yeah, sounds right. It's just focusing on the wrong picture. Okay, I think we may be there. Just give it a second to catch up on the live. It's going to look good for the public. I do apologise to anyone. Right, I think we're there. Yes, you can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. So good evening, members. Welcome to this meeting of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee. I do apologise for the slight delay in the commencement of this meeting. Unfortunately, we did have a slight technical issue with our connection to the Council's YouTube channel. That has now been resolved and the meeting can proceed. Members, as set out on the agenda, this is a non-decision making of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee. You are here as an evidence gathering session only, and you will not be taking any decisions in respect of this matter. Before we commence with the proceedings this evening, I can confirm that the Council has adopted some basic etiquette rules for its meetings, and these are as follows. Please only speak when the Chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the Chairman know that you wish to speak through the chat function. The Chairman will introduce speakers in the order at the request has been made, unless there is a point of order which we will give way. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute your microphones when you're not speaking and to consider turning off your video to produce interference on your audio feed. Please bear in mind that there may be a lag between speakers hearing you and attendees. Presentations will be given this evening by sharing of the screen. If you have any problems in viewing the presentation, please let me know through the chat function. When referring to, members, there is no report this evening. However, if you do have any questions on the presentation, please make a note of the slide number and the officer will be able to refer to the slide in his response to any questions you may have. There's no private business for this meeting. However, members, if we are needing to move into private session, you must make sure that your venue and connection is private. If you lose connection at any point and you are unable to immediately rejoin the meeting, please contact me and I will assist you in readmitting to the meeting. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to the access to information regimes of FOI and EIR. It is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation and the Council's Code of Conduct. For this meeting, councillors are identified with a prefix of CLLR, councillor, before the name. Officers in attendance have a prefix of officer. There is a minute taker and myself as the meeting facilitator. I can confirm that the meeting is quorate and may proceed. The Performance Management Committee consists of the following members. The Chairman is Councillor Mick Radley, the Vice Chairman is Peter Schweer, and the remaining members are James Coldridge, George Courtauld, Charlie Dervish, Tony Everard, Saif Redman, Bill Rose, and Nick Unsworth. We have no apologies this evening, Chairman. Officers in attendance are James Sinclair. He is the lead officer for this scrutiny review and also witness this evening. My name's Emma Wisby, I'm the meeting facilitator. We also have Jessica Mann, who is clerk in this meeting, and we're also in attendance have Chris Fleetham, Corporate Director. I will now hand over to the Chairman, Mick Radley. Thank you, Chairman.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Mick Radley and I'm the Chairman. I'm being assisted by a governance officer and a meeting facilitator who will help me to identify when people want to speak and manage notifications through the chat function. I obviously can't see you all, so please let me know using the chat function if there are any issues with your internet connection. Please also remember to mute your microphones when you finish speaking. Members, for this meeting, when I seek your agreement, silence will be taken as assent. As the meeting facilitator has confirmed the attendance of members and officers for this meeting, I shall now proceed with the business of the meeting. So agenda item 1, which is the apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence from any member of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee?
Chairman, all your members are present this evening. And Chairman, if I just may, Councillor Redmond joined the meeting during the pre-commencement. Could I just please check Councillor Redmond's connection to the meeting, please?
Good evening, Chairman, and please accept my apologies for being a couple of minutes late. I was having some issues. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, that sounds like we're all here now, and welcome to you all. So as there are no apologies, I'll proceed to item 2, which is the declarations of interest. Do any members of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? Please state the item and the nature of your interest. Please indicate if you wish to speak in the chat function. I have 2, I believe, just checking. Or in actual fact, no, that's the agenda. So I have no.
Chairman, you have Councillor Schweer indicating.
I had nothing on the chat function.
No, he's indicated visually. Apologies,
okay.
Chairman.
All right. Okay, Councillor Schweer, through the chat function, please. But you can, this time, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My fingers aren't quick enough. Just to an MPI chair as a member of Essex County Council.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Schweer. Any more declarations of interest? There's nothing on the chat. So in which case, I'll move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Members, for this item, I will be seeking your agreement. Therefore, silence will be assent. However, if a member wishes to raise an issue in respect of the minutes, please indicate via the chat function. Do any members have any objection to the approval of the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting held on the 9th of March 2021? Okay, Councillor Unsworth, please.
Just abstain because I wasn't present.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more from anybody? No. Okay, in which case I'll take your silence as approval of the agreement to the minutes. We now proceed to item 4, which is public question time. Members, there are no registered speakers for this evening on public question time, so I'll proceed to item 5, which is the scrutiny review into commercialisation at Braintree District Council, the first evidence gathering session. Members, I would like to start this session by welcoming Mr. James Sinclair, Commercial Manager at the Council, to the meeting. James is in attendance in order to support our evidence gathering for this review, and he has kindly prepared a PowerPoint presentation on the subject of commercialisation. You may recall that James also was in attendance at the previous meeting of the committee on the 10th of March 2021 in order to introduce himself to members and make some initial observations as to the direction we are looking to take on our review. In a moment, I will ask James to once again introduce himself and provide a brief background as to his role at the Council before beginning his presentation. Members, you should have received hard copies of the presentation along with the agenda. I'm sure that many of you have questions on the presentation from James. The presentation is divided into 3 sections, you may have observed. So to help facilitate questions, we're going to take questions at the end of each one of those 3 sessions, and we'll pause to enable you to ask those questions related to that session, and then have a wrap-up session of questions at the end. When asking your questions, please have regard to the terms of reference for the review. If you wish to speak at the end of the section, please indicate through the chat function. Thank you, James, for your attendance this evening and for preparing this presentation for us. Before you start with this, can you kindly introduce yourself and your role at the Council for the benefit of those watching on the YouTube channel? Thank you, James, and over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. My name's James Sinclair. I'm a commercial manager at Braintree District Council. So my role, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail as part of the presentation, is to support income generating activities, to look across the services that we operate, identify opportunities for efficiency savings, and also to support some of our contracts to identify opportunities to save money through third-party spend.
Okay, thank you. Please start your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just share screen now. Okay, can I just confirm everyone can see that presentation?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, the first slide really sets out the key scrutiny questions that are covered by the terms of reference, which we hope over the course of this review we'll be able to answer for you. And I'm sure there'll be additional questions that stem from those that we will support and help us develop the commercial agenda going forward. But I thought it's useful just to include this at the start of the presentation. So as Chairman noted, there are 3 sections. We start with the commercial overview, which hopefully details how we operate our commercial service within Braintree District Council. We then move on to a second section around learning from others. So what are others doing? How are we learning from what is happening across the rest of the public sector and indeed the private sector? And finally, the commercial plan. So some of the work we are doing, particularly at the moment, around developing commercialisation and meeting budget needs going forward. So I'll start with commercial overview. The commercial proposition we set out here has been identified by the commercial workstream group, which is representative of individuals across the council at various different levels, and was agreed by members as part of the investment and development programme. But in a nutshell, the role of commercialisation is to identify income and deliver savings to offset the costs of that service, and so reduce demands on council tax whilst preserving frontline services. And you can see there's a number of areas that we set out in there around how we attract additional income, how we continue to review our services to make sure that we're doing our services in the most effective way possible. But we do that in the context of our public sector values. And where we can, we find opportunities where we can generate income or savings, which make a real positive difference to our communities as well. And the final bit really is around creating structure in which we operate, so that we make sure that when opportunities do arise, that we can consider those quickly, effectively, and we are not tied up for months on end making decisions around this, but we have effective structures in place to enable us to seize opportunities. So our structure's pretty small, as you can see. It's not going to take very long to go through this slide. So there's myself. I'm the commercial manager. So I lead for the investment and development programme, which we'll go into further detail later on in the slide deck. And I lead specifically for the commercial work stream within that programme. I have direct control over a number of specific traded services, which are listed there. But I also support across income generating activities right the way across the council. And as I said in my introduction, I support for service and contract review activity. I have Jeremy Taylor, who works for me as commercial sales executive. He has a much more focused role, which is around sales activity for those directly controlled services and for those supported activities, but also for the operational lead for Braintree Conference Centre. And Jeremy joined us about a couple of years ago and has made some really great inroads, both in development of that centre and the sales activity that he's been working on. Jeremy also supports the lease activity down at the Braintree Enterprise Centre and will support the Horizon 120 once that has been built. So I've tried to list here some of the commercial impacts that we've had over the last few years. So our work is really very varied, mine in particular, and it ranges from identifying, developing, growing income, generating services, to supporting new contracts, supporting funding bids, and undertaking service reviews to mitigate cost increases. We have specific commercial projects that we have identified, but we also support projects across strategic investment, some of the significant projects that are happening across there, and also across the asset management service. Some of the kind of projects that we pick out there, I mentioned around the sales function, supporting the income level there. And we've seen a pretty good increase in income against those lines of over 100% since we started looking after that area a couple of years back. We also seen some the creation and growth of the shared payroll service, and seen that service grow recently by 30% with the addition of new authorities. But importantly, across that service as well, we've seen an increase in resilience, which was a primary reason really for introducing that. So we had payroll resting with one or two people in the authorities that created that shared service. But what we wanted to do was to make sure that there was much more resilience in that service should one or two people be off or something to happen, that we had a team that could take on the workload should it be required. We've worked on contracts such as agency staffing contract, and we are creating business cases at the moment around various different elements such as digital advertising to see how we can generate, again, additional income to the authority. Over the last year, our role has grown further with some pretty key strategic suppliers such as Fusion, where we've needed to support Fusion as an organisation and our leisure market, or our leisure offer, I should say, as we go through these difficult times. We managed to put a successful bid to the National Leisure Recovery Fund of 352k to help fund that leisure offer, and we provided open book assessment of Fusion throughout the course of the last year to ensure that taxpayers are clearly getting value for money, and we are maintaining a good, strong control over our key contractors. We've also supported other bids, such as the digital demand responsive transport bid made with Essex County Council, and that's brought in a new service to support Horizon and other parts of the town, and that should come into being over the next few months. And that was a significant benefit to us. Not only did it bring in increased connectivity to residents across Braintree, but it also enabled us to reduce the cost of extending bus transport to the new Horizon 120 Park, which clearly had a financial saving to the authority. We supported funding bids for the new Horizon 120 Enterprise Centre, and we are currently working on the mobilisation plan for that centre, which will include a significant events offer and support to businesses on that park and beyond. And we have worked across a whole range of different areas, from bus shelter collaborations and shared services to exploring different contracts and options that we have, such as postage options. So I won't go into the detail across all of them, but as you can see, it's a pretty varied role that we take in the council. Some of our key trade services are listed here. So clearly we have car parking as a key income generator there, and have other services such as trade waste, events, sponsorship and advertising, etc. Clearly last year we took quite a hit, particularly in areas such as parking, events and print. So we are looking at how we get back into those markets, and we've seen some really healthy growth across events, and some better than expected figures across some of the other areas. But we're looking to grow some of those areas, such as new advertising locations and building a really cohesive events offer that operates across the venues that we have, and which will include Horizon 120 once that's built. Some of the shared services that we've operated so far, or looked at so far, is around shared payroll. I mentioned that earlier, but set up in 2019. We delivered some efficient savings and a resilience that I spoke about, and that was between Braintree, Colchester and Epping Forest, and that grew out some really good, strong relationships that we had with those authorities already. Since that time, the service has grown by 30%, with the addition of 3 further smaller payrolls with Brentwood, Castle Point and Rochford, and those new payroll services came on board at the start of this financial year. So they're really just bedding in as we speak, but that all seems to be going quite positively. We've had other shared services around for long periods of time, such as shared procurement, and where we've operated a shared procurement hub on behalf of a number of different authorities. These things always go up and down as authorities like to maintain control of certain services. So we'll find that shared services sometimes grow, sometimes they'll contract, and then they'll grow again. So that's one of the sort of interesting kind of aspects that we have to contend with when we're looking at shared services. And we're looking at those at the moment. So we have been having conversations with other authorities to discuss what options there are around shared delivery. And we'll continue to have those conversations to look at where the opportunity is to create efficiencies through the way we work. So that brings me to the end of the whistle-top tour of commercialisation. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, James. I've got a couple of questions myself, but I'll open it up to others if anybody else would like to ask any questions on this section of the commercialisation overview. And looks like they've all been very shy. Okay, well, I'll kick off with a couple of questions and then perhaps anybody else like to come forward with some as well. James, in terms of, it sounds like some really good stuff you're getting to grips with there and getting your teeth into. I guess one of the questions I've got is that one of the basic premises of commercialisation, I guess, is to reduce the burden on council tax call in order to either improve or grow services. Basically, that's the basic premise of this. Does the council have a vision, if you like, on where they would like to take commercialisation in the future, to say a couple of milestones in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, for example? I note from the last budget papers that council tax contributes 32% or 31%, something like this, to the total income. And then if you then go down to a lower level, I've got to get the figure here, the sales fees and charges is another 20% broadly. And rents is 11%. I guess these are, if you like, perhaps the two commercial elements of the intake. So I guess my question is there a clear strategy and vision of where the council want to take this in the future to be less dependent on council tax? It's a heavy question, maybe not to answer tonight, but you can give me at least get a first reaction. So please, your thoughts.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we have a clear vision in terms of how we grow the services. I think that's very much linked in with the investment and development programme going forward, recognising that there are budget challenges ahead, as there are across other local authorities. And it's about identifying the role of the traded services that we have to help contribute towards those. It's about identifying new opportunities to trade that will further support meeting that challenge. And it's about looking across our services, across how we operate our services to make sure that we're doing that efficiently. So I guess in terms of the targets is based around meeting that financial challenge going forward, rather than saying, oh, we will grow by X% or Y%. But those growth elements are captured as part of each of the projects and as part of the commercial work stream within that investment and development programme. And then as part of the wider programme, incorporating strategic investment, asset management, treasury management, so that we have, we're not working in a siloed way, we're pushing our resources into the right place, which will help us continue to deliver the services that we need to provide to residents, and reduce the impact on council tax. Okay.
I guess my sort of kind of overview question is, we're 32% dependent on council tax today. Is there a vision for that to be 20% in 5-10 years' time? Or isn't there one? I mean, is it basically to stay with the same mix but keep trying to catch up? Is I guess the question really.
I think we would hope to grow the income clearly from traded services, which may trade services and some of the savings projects and income generating activity that we have. But we would want to, in terms of putting percentage against that, we don't have a specific percentage attached to it. I know that Chris has got his hand up, so I don't know, Chris, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, James is quite right. We've not looked at the percentages as such. The real difficulty here, of course, is the council tax will grow, but relatively slowly. But there's also part of our income is from business rates, and the government is looking at a review of the proportion of business rates that councils keep, because at the moment we collect something like 40 million, but we only keep 4 million of that. The rest is redistributed across other councils. And we're not sure when that review is going to take place and what the impact's going to be. So we've not looked at it in percentage terms. What we are doing is trying to make sure that we are as efficient and effective and commercial as possible, generate as much income from services where appropriate, to keep the charge on the council tax down as much as we can. But it's a very fluid at the moment, and we'll obviously keep our eyes on it and update members as things change.
Okay, thank you very much for both. We have a queue of people waiting to ask questions now, so I'll run through those. Councillor Rose, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's just really on the commercial overview, and in James's start of his presentation, he mentioned that it says that himself and Jeremy Taylor have supported income generating services. In the light of that, income generating activities, Chairman, I'm just using figures here plucked out of the air. If we have an income of £1 and it costs us £1.50 to achieve it, is there any crossover monitored for revenue achieved and costs, etc.? Let's put it on my scrutiny hat, Chairman. Thank you.
Indeed, very good question. James.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, we look at the net cost of delivering these activities. Clearly, the team is split over multiple areas, not just some of the income generating areas, but some of the savings activity, but also activities such as leases and things such as that. So we do ensure that we look at the net income that comes from that activity, and that includes staff. That also includes the actual goods and materials to service that requirement as well. In short, we are conscious all the time that it doesn't cost more to deliver the service than it does in terms of income. And part of that income really is about how we mitigate the costs of certain activities to the authority. So we are looking at, for example, trade waste. How can we are delivering a trade waste service out to organisations across the district. Some of those organisations are private sector waste collection organisations may not be particularly interested in servicing because of the location of where they are in the authority. So it's about how we kind of continue to provide a service to our customers, and use the income that we're generating to help mitigate the cost of delivering that service.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Sphere, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Two questions, if I may, just quickly. On the opportunities of commercial sponsorship and advertising and events, is there any area that is particularly able to be expanded and increase the market share due to demand? Basically, I was just wondering if there's a possibility of creating new markets as well on that, because obviously, as Councillor Rose asked about the profitability, that's a question I was going to ask. Presumably, we can identify the most profitable part of that. And the second part is on the shared procurement. I was disappointed to read that that's not being as successful as I think it potentially could be in savings. But who drives it? And what are there any plans for this to be increased in the future? Because and who's the leading authority on this? Could you just expand a little bit more on that, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Sphere. Thank you, Chairman. So in terms of events and advertising, so they are kind of two of the kind of key areas that we're looking to grow. We have the new enterprise centre that will be starting in Horizon 120, which we hope will be able to offer a range of different activities out of that centre, including a cafe, including some big events and hopefully some social events as well. We are continually looking at our events offer and to see how we can grow that, and that's why we've joined those events teams together, so that and created a web offer for them, so that when we get an inquiry, we're able to look at what the best venue is, and then to move people around those venues to try and give customers the best option for them, clearly, but also to ensure that one venue, if it hasn't got a date available, that we have another backup venue that we can point people towards. So that is certainly something that we're looking at. Advertising, I think, is a key one in terms of growth. I think there's a growth in digital advertising now, and so there's opportunities to generate additional income from digital advertising over and above the normal kind of paper and paste advertising that we previously had. So that allows well, essentially 6 times more advertisers on at any one time, and also a reduced cost attached to those advertisers or to the authority in placing those advertisers. Clearly, you know, it's just a signal going towards a digital screen rather than us having to go in and physically change over. So there's some real opportunities, I think, in that space, and looking at locations where appropriate, clearly, where we can grow that advertising area. I think there's some shared opportunities there that we can look at. Payroll has grown. We need time for it to bed in. But actually, that's a fantastic model. It's grown really well already. It kind of ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of authorities to ensure resilience. If we can look at payroll options and other options surrounding that, where we can support, such as election payroll and things along those lines, then we can look to grow that service. But I think what we need to do is do that in a really sustainable way, where we have the staff in place and we have kind of resilience built for our own payrolls, first of all. In terms of the procurement, shared procurement element of it, so that's been Braintree based, and we are the lead authority for it. It's, I think, experienced difficulties where other authorities have, as I say, wanted to take control over their own area. It's recently been announced that I'll be looking after that area in the interim going forward, whilst structures are resolved. So that's certainly an area that I'll be focusing on, and I had initial conversations with the senior procurement officer there And I think there's really good opportunities around growing frameworks and generating income from there, but also potentials around growing that service where there's the appetite. And I should stress that we at Braintree have been really quite keen on looking for opportunities to work together. But there are difficulties in that with others kind of wanting to, I think everybody wants to have control of it, and nobody wants to kind of give up control of particular areas. So we have to kind of be mindful of that and think about how we can continue to provide a really efficient, effective service for our residents, whilst also kind of looking for opportunities how we can join together where possible.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think next is Councillor Everard. Councillor Everard, over to you. Councillor Everard.
Thank you.
Good man.
Yeah, my question was on procurement in the main, and Councillor Swears already asked that question. But there's with consumables, there's certainly a saving on that sort of thing. But some of the other places will have preferences, and so that possibly falls apart in some of the more capital items. I just wanted to go on to the fusion, for instance, so important to keep leisure going and providing leisure through the council. As I say, Councillor Swears actually asked my main question. Thanks.
Okay. I think I don't think there's any response. I think you've answered perhaps Councillor Everard's question through Councillor Sphere. So Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a very quick one, and just sort of picking up on what folks have been saying. Is it possible to have some sort of, I think it's a return on investment side of things, so that we know where the breaks are that people are talking about? We know that council tax is not going to go up this year, so we would look at having something to say we would reduce the reliance on council tax by 10% in 1 year, whatever it might be. So we're looking at a return on investment, actual number-based slide for the next time or in the future. That's the first part of it. The other one is, does the fact that other councils have decided to take on their own procurement, does that ring in any bells? Because obviously other councils are looking to improve their own efficiencies, and is something that could constrain us. Thanks.
James.
Thank you. Absolutely, we can look at a return on investment. I'll speak to Chris after this, and we can put together a slide around that. In terms of procurement, I think there are clearly bells of alarm where people want to take on their own services around this, but I think it's not a sort of a council-wide thing. It tends to be around personalities in particular areas. So people make a choice on that they would like to take back one particular service with a particular vision in mind. So it's just, I think going forward, what we'll be really clear about is engaging with our customers, really understanding kind of what their needs are, and making sure that where their needs perhaps are changing, that we are adapting our shared services, our traded services to meet those changing needs, and keeping those sort of good contact going around that. I think there's a good opportunity around procurement, but there's also a good opportunity around a number of other areas that we can look at. So we will continue to look at that going forward.
Okay, thank you, James. Councillor Everard, would you like to come back on another question?
Yes, please. I wondered, do we facilitate small business startups? Thanks.
Okay, James.
Well, absolutely. So we facilitate through a number of different areas, really. So the enterprise centres that I referred to earlier are fantastic incubators for small businesses. So we have already got the enterprise centre, which is never kind of without a waiting list down at Springwood Drive. We're building another one with the select funding I referred to earlier at the Horizon Park. So again, that will hopefully provide more opportunity for growing businesses, and that also includes a shared working area where people can use desks in a shared area and rent meeting rooms. So even those, one or two staff will be able to subscribe to a desk and access a working environment and access other kind of office associated kind of paraphernalia, copying and such like that, to kind of help them grow their business. And perhaps potentially give them a bit of peace and quiet maybe as well. So we have the enterprise centres. We provide support through the economic development team to small businesses, and that's included things such as grants during COVID period. But also we provide support through activities such as procurement, where we will structure procurements to enable small businesses to be able to bid for activity. So there's a whole range of different ways that we can, and I'm sure there's new ways that we can support small businesses going forward to really kind of further develop them.
Thank you.
Okay.
I actually did go on a BDC run course, and I was very grateful for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, members. I think there are no more questions for section 1. So I'll draw a close to that. Anything else that comes to mind, we can mop up at the end. So James, would you like to go to section 2, please?
Absolutely. So this section is around how we learn from others, as it says. So there's a number of groups that we participate in. There's the National Cross-Council Revenue Group, which has been operating for over a decade, but has really taken off over the last probably 6 months to a year with new leadership from West Sussex County Council. This group shares income generating best practice and ideas through the membership. And we clearly attend those meetings to see if there's any other areas that we can pick up on and trying to explore as we do run through the case studies from the Local Government Association and in discussion with the East of England Local Government Association. And we have regular conversations with those groups to see what opportunities there are across different authorities, and I'll pick up a couple of those in a future slide. What we found with that was it was great at gathering ideas, but actually there's opportunity, particularly around how we can share services, such as the sales function, where we thought a more local group would be of benefits. So we set up the Essex Commercial Network a couple of years ago now. And that group really seeks to understand what's happening on a local level. So identifying opportunities, as it says, to join up with neighbours and how we deliver things, and really understand what others are doing. And I think what it probably has shown us is that we are pretty good in Braintree on the whole, and there's some that are doing have got different opportunities to us, and exploring that. And we'll talk about that with Colchester in a couple of slides' time. But in general, we've got a pretty developed commercial agenda. So what we want to do is make sure that we keep on with that, and that we are kind of taking a very best practice. So as I've said there, it's at very different stages. Some councils have a very small commercial offer, and really it's not a focus at all. Whereas others are really developed, and I think you've seen that grow recently with Braintree, particularly around the significant development around Horizon Park, around the creation of the enterprise centres and development of those. And around some of the activities such as shared payroll, advertising growth, sponsorship that we've grown, and we've shared our sales support with other authorities in some of those areas as well, at a cost, clearly, to offset the cost of that resource and improve our return on investment. But we've kind of got a reputation as doing quite well across a number of different areas, and that's something that we want to continue to build on. So there are a number of activities that are kind of pretty common across areas: trade waste, advertising, training, etc. But I'd say trade waste, we've again we started that quite early. And we've got a good, strong customer base there. There's some areas which others are looking at, such as shared revenues and benefits team. Brentwood and Basden trade that as a service. And there's others outside of Essex where people have looked at things such as local lotteries, renewable energy facilities, and harnessing technology for engagement with staff to creating efficiencies. So we're clearly looking at all of those as part of our programme to consider whether actually there's a benefit to Braintree in looking at some of those, and whether there's a net income benefit from it. So we will continue to look at that. And as I've said there, we've recently created a survey and distributed that to councils to try and get a complete picture of the commercial offer in Essex, again with the idea, really constantly the idea around how we generate ideas. I put an example here of best in class from Colchester. So Colchester achieved Best Commercial Council in 2020, which is obviously clearly a fantastic achievement for them. And they have a series of commercial trading companies that they operate, and do quite a bit of traded work. Some of the significant ones there I've pulled out, which were picked up by the judges, which is around district heat networks, around the house building programme, and the sports park and broadband offer. So I guess to put that in context, though, there's sort of certain opportunities that come along to different organisations such as Colchester, including kind of using facilities like Colchester Castle and other activities, and they have an in-source leisure provision. But actually, equally, there are activities that we do from Braintree's point of view for Horizon. Using Horizon as an example, so the opportunity to pick up that Horizon Park and create an employment site there. The iConstruct project that's happening in Springwood Drive to try and bring new innovative building techniques into the district. So we're all kind of looking at different areas, and I think learning from each other about how we can do these things and increase commercialisation within the council. That concludes section 2. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, James, for that one. So do we have any questions at this stage on that section you'd like to ask? Okay, I guess I'll start off again. I guess there's one of the obvious things that I mean, it's great to see Colchester, having that level, if you like, and it, obviously a different type of authority to Braintree in several aspects. But is there anything there, that aspects of what they do that can draw parallels and where we can gain some further initiatives from that for benefit in the future?
Yeah, as I said, Chairman, I think there are a number of areas where we kind of pick up around projects that they've been looking at. I can't go specifically into the detail of those projects here, but absolutely we're looking to learn from them. We'll be we're looking through the commercial network, but also from other links with key staff at Colchester, about how they do things, how they identify opportunities, and what they're doing. So we'll look to pick up the learning from that as well. So I think there's two elements. The first is, are there opportunities to learn from what Colchester have done, and embed schemes such as those into Braintree, and the second is learning from how Colchester identify these opportunities in the first place, and how we can ensure that we have good structures in place here and good opportunities where we can pick up some of these ideas. And I think some of that will be picked up as part of this section 3 as we go through the investment and development programme.
Okay. This best in class by Colchester, is that something that Braintree took part in at the time, or is it something we haven't taken part in, or are we not in the right sector, or how? And then the last question is, how can we become best commercial council?
Absolutely. So we didn't participate in this. It's an awards through the Municipal Journal. But there are a number of awards activities that are going on. We are looking at one of those at the moment, and considering all the various activities I've mentioned, which I think build a really good picture of how we're supporting businesses, and how we're developing a really strong commercial offer across the council. So we are currently drafting paperwork for one of these awards. So touch wood, we will again accolades such as this going forward, but we'll continue as well to learn from those authorities who do get those awards, and how we can sort of grow their ideas and adapt them to the specific needs of Braintree.
Okay, thank you, James. So I have a question now coming from Councillor Sphere. Over to you, Councillor Sphere.
Thank you, Chair. James, could I just ask about not so much the best in class, but you mentioned Horizon 120 and iConstruct. Do you think we have got enough expertise and staff and resources going forward to promote that in the necessary way? And I'm thinking more of the events and perhaps at national level. And I presume that we will be supporting our local businesses as well, with potentially with hotels and restaurants and places to stay. So I know it's a bit of an integrated question, but the best in class for us potentially would also help our businesses as well. Is that part of the aims of the council as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schwer. Thank you, Chairman. So absolutely. So we have, as I think mentioned earlier, created a shared events team, and that has, and part of the purpose of that really is about putting out the expertise across that team, so it's not siloed in different parts of the authority. So we have marketing expertise within that team. We have sales expertise. We have expertise at running events and activities across both community and business level. So the idea really behind sharing expertise across those events teams is that we are ready for Horizon 120, and we can effectively run events within that new facility, but also run events across our others. So I think That's something we'll continue to keep an eye on, and we'll continue to assure ourselves that the numbers are going in the right direction, and if they're not, look at how we can develop the team to ensure that they do. But also, I think in terms of the best-in-class element around that centre, we have clearly expertise in strategic investment and across asset management. What we would look at constantly, and that's part of the mobilisation plan for that centre, is where we have gaps in expertise. We would look to either bring that in or identify short-term needs for that and getting the relevant expertise, as we have with our strategic investment team. We have some pretty sort of strong expertise who are currently supporting that. I guess the longer term view of that is probably a question for others in the authority to look at, and also a question of how well those services perform, and making sure that we are hitting what we need to hit in terms of developing our traded offer, and spotting early where there are issues so that we can address those.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Does anybody else have any questions for that section before we move on? It would seem not. So James, if you'd like to, your concluding part, then we'll just wrap up with the questions at the end.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so commercial plan. We have developed over the last 6 months a programme that looks to meet the financial challenges ahead of us caused through COVID, and as I said earlier, experienced by a number of other authorities as well. And that investment and development programme, as it's called, features 4 key work streams. We have the strategic investment work stream that looks at projects, key capital build projects that we can make revenue from going forward, and looks across what we're doing across other areas for new ideas for how we can identify potential buildings and potential activities where we can invest our capital wisely and generate a strong return, but also importantly meet the needs of the residents of the district. So even where that doesn't necessarily generate a strong return to us, then we want to make sure that we are delivering what residents need and what the economy needs. We have the second element, which is asset management. So that's looking at a portfolio of assets, really reviewing those assets to make sure that they're delivering what's best in class in terms of return to us, and potentially looking at new ones where appropriate, and where actually our asset mix is not in the right area. So part of those considerations are looking at where we don't need so much assets ourselves, so where there's opportunities to generate income from that. We've got the commercial programme, which I've talked about, which is focused around some of our traded services, around generating income from some of those, and it tends to be some of the smaller numbers compared to strategic investment, given the sort of big capital investments, but helps generate income in the shorter term, and sustained income from that going forward. But also looking at how we operate as a service, how we can, or as an organisation, as I say, and how we can generate savings from the organisation, again, into the medium term. And then finally, around treasury management, we have investments. So it's understanding how we invest in the money markets, and how we can ensure that our capital and our finances are appropriately balanced, so that they can meet the needs of the other 3 work streams, meet the needs of our promises, within our priorities as an organisation, but also how we can create sustainable revenue, as I say, going forward. So the focus really is on delivering against that 1.6 million budget cap over the next 4 years, and we have a significant a number of projects, 33 in total, and that's growing and changing all the time, where we look at having a sufficient pipeline to meet that, to go above that, and we target, and we've kept to those targets as part of the steering group, which I'll refer to in a minute. We want to work across the organisation, so we want to target resources and include financial resources where it's going to give us the best return and the best support for what we do as an authority. And we want to, as referred to earlier, we create a net income assessment approach when we're looking at business cases. So we're not investing huge amounts of time and effort into activities which just generate an income, but it costs so much time and effort to generate an income it's actually not worth doing at all. So it's about keeping a clear idea around that. So that covers the programme. So the programme is, as I've said, has those 4 work streams that reports into an officer group, which is Investment and Development Programme Group, with representation from directors and the chief executive. That in turn reports into a members steering group, which includes Councillor Butland as a leader of the council and other members of cabinet. And then that again reports into JET. So this is really the accountability structure to ensure that we're delivering against that budget challenge. We are making sure that we don't just stop at a certain point, which we wouldn't clearly, but making sure that we're constantly looking through the entirety of this 4-year programme to identify opportunities. And we report on each specific project under that, so that members have the assurance that projects are moving forward and with confidence levels and stages against each of those projects, so that where one particular saving opportunity or income generating activity isn't working out, we can balance that across a portfolio of other opportunities within that pipeline, so that we are delivering against that important requirement. What's really important here, we've talked about looking outside of the organisation and other authorities and what they're doing, but we've got such a strong, important resource inside of the organisation. Our staff are constantly talking to others, colleagues across different organisations, talking outside of it, of those normal channels, and have some really fantastic ideas that we identified through the Better at Business approach in 2016. So what we created is an approach where we can capture those ideas both from heads of service and from individual staff, so that we can identify opportunities to make savings, efficiencies, because after all, the guys doing it, they know the best approach to do that, and to generate income. So we pick up those ideas, we look at the feasibility of those through one of the work streamer groups, and that is probably going to be the commercial work stream on the whole, because of the type of opportunities that generally come up for will fit within that work stream. We will then provide the support, assistance, resource to deliver that into a business case. We'll review how that project is embedding through the process that I've just been outlining, with monthly updates to members and to senior officers in the authority. And then we will have a process at the end to make sure that we can learn those lessons and put that in practice for new projects going forward. So that's a process that we've introduced. We've had opportunities in the past for ideas to be fed through, but now we have a really good structured approach that will be supported by the communications team for the 1.6 million challenge activity, so that we can really get staff engaged. Outside of that as well, so outside of those specific program projects that have been identified, we'll undertake service review activity both through the NTFS approach, that's an annual approach that we do, but also where we can deep dive into specific services as identified through directors where we can support. And we've built up a really good, I hope, really good structured approach to doing that, where we understand what the needs of the service is. We really understand the cost pressures, the revenues attached to those. We benchmark and we market test that activity, and we have tools and support and guidance against each one of these tabs here. So as I say, we benchmark and we market test service to really assure ourselves that we're delivering best value to our residents. We then consider the options. Are there some really good options about how we can improve? And technology clearly is a key one here, and new ways of working caused from COVID. So actually, we may approach our customers differently post-COVID than we did pre-COVID. So actually, what are the opportunities that we can glean from the pandemic to improve the offer that we provide to residents, and what are the options that we can identify from the activities happening before, delivering that and managing that at the end clearly. What's been important to us for commercial, I think we've had a number of projects which we identified in earlier on in this presentation. But actually, I think where we could get stronger, where we could get better, is how we engage our staff. And so I've been working with a group representing a whole range of different levels and disciplines across the council who make up the commercial workstream group to look at what the key areas we should be working on. And we've developed these subgroups within that to really focus on that and make sure that commercialisation doesn't just sit with myself and Jeremy and a few people across the organisation, but actually is fully embedded within Braintree District Council going forward. So engagement, how can we generate those ideas, which I set out an element there, how we can communicate that and bring people on board with that. It's all very well having the opportunity to put ideas, but we need to motivate and support people to generate those. And we'll be providing case studies and such for people to learn from as part of that. We'll look at how we market and cross-sell activities across different disciplines so that we can engage with key partner customers and really capitalise on that good brand that the council has. We'll look at the skills of the organisation. How can we ensure that we have a staff base that recognise commercial opportunities when they arise and can seize them and go forward with them. So what's the right support, training, mentoring that can help our staff in doing that? We'll develop a toolkit which is made up of various things that we created over last year, but we'll be adding more to. We'll put that on the Beehive and make sure that people know it's there, access it, and really encourage people to use it. So that includes things such as the service review toolkit that I talked about earlier, but also it'll include things such as case studies, guidance notes, etc., to help staff both generate ideas and, as I said earlier, actually deliver those ideas. And we'll provide support all the way through for people in doing that. And the final one is around insight. So making sure we've got the right governance structures to deliver change quickly, making sure that we've got the best, we're focusing on the best services that deliver that net income, which is that point raised earlier around that return on investment. So put our time, our effort, our resource into those that really deliver the right outcomes, both in terms of income to us, but also to meet needs of our customers but also those that have potential to grow, such as shared payroll. We'll gather external knowledge through that group. It's identify examples of great commercial practice, and then we'll share that both within the group and with the wider organisation. So again, that knowledge doesn't just sit with myself and others and a few others. It sits with other groups across that, and we've explored options such as commercial newsletters and such, so that we can really promote that and build good practice. And I think that brings us to the end of that kind of future of commercialisation. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, thank you, James. That certainly was a very comprehensive presentation. So we will go into the final round of questions now. And I believe Councillor Unsworth was the first one. So Councillor Unsworth, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, it's just a quick one, really, picking up on two parts of it. On slide 17, you've got the ideas side of things, and you seem to just have you got any aspirations to expand that past any officers? And linking that with what you said on COVID, is there actually an opportunity within COVID to offer services? And I'm thinking particularly to small businesses that have been struggling with networking, that have been struggling with remote meetings and things like that. But going beyond that to, and from personal experience, to setting up small businesses, to setting up a web page and hosting services, and actually providing that sort of start, which for a small business is really, really difficult to do, because it really does take a lot of time to do and detracts you from setting up a small business. Linking that in as well to cybersecurity. I know we've got a really good team there. And I think there's some issues around cybersecurity within small businesses. But in particular, one example was parish councils are struggling with cybersecurity at the moment. And I'm wondering if there's something that within Braintree District they could actually offer parish councils cybersecurity support, where they are not really protecting their data properly, they're not protecting their information properly. You know, single sign, single log on a computer, which gives you access to everything, is not great, and cyber excellence is something that we could look at. So all up, I think a really positive presentation, and I'm wondering if we can look at some of those. But the other side of this is I see no mention of the word risk, no risk to the Braintree District Council on any of these here. So, for example, the shared payroll services, what is the risk if that goes wrong? What if the risk, are they mitigated? Are they covered within your business case? Where do you address those risks to the parish council for a business, to the district council for that particular business case or that particular stream? Thank you.
James.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. So if I take each point, so in terms of the ideas, you're quite right, and I should have said that, that actually ideas should go beyond just officers, but where members have ideas too. We're hoping as part of members' events over the next year to update members clearly on the programme we've been talking about, but also to capture ideas from members about how we can take things forward. Clearly members come from a whole range of different backgrounds, which could be really useful to us as an organisation to look for opportunities to look at things differently, and opportunity to grow into markets that we perhaps hadn't considered ourselves, just by virtue of kind of the fact that we're local government officers, and to a certain extent we're kind of limited by some of that experience. So absolutely, we will be looking for ideas from members, and hopefully over the course of the year we will be really clear about how we'll gather those ideas. In terms of small businesses, absolutely, we've been in discussions with Anglia Ruskin about some of these activities, and with our Economic Development Unit, and also with specific services here, such as IT, and actually what is our offer. So we provide a service through our print function, to a number of small businesses where they can access that. They can access digital archiving, access design advice at a kind of affordable price for small businesses, and they're sort of key markets for us. We provide small businesses access to local advertising through roundabout sponsorship, through some of the advertising boards and publications that we offer. But actually, that kind of how can we support small businesses right at their outset to grow, to develop, with some really useful advice. One of the things we're looking at the moment is how we can use the Horizon Centre and the new businesses that will be entering Horizon Centre, and how we can provide support to those businesses, but also use it as a hub to support that park and to support wider Braintree in some of that. So that's something that we're really at early stages at, if I'm honest. Certainly in terms of, there's clearly support that's provided by economic development around that area. But from a commercial team perspective, I think we're at early stages, but it's something that we are looking at and we're hoping to grow as part of those points that I've just mentioned. That one, we haven't looked specifically at cybersecurity and how we could support parish councils, but if it's okay, I'll grab that idea because that sounds great, and I will talk to my colleague Paul to see if that's something that we can offer, and perhaps link back in with this group about taking that forward and what the options are around that. We need to look at clearly the practicalities around it, but that sounds like a good idea to me to have a look at. And then finally, around risk. So everything that we do in terms of creating, so for example, creating the shared payroll service, we'll create a business case. There will be risks attached to those business case that we will explore and consider whether the risks of taking of developing that service or taking on additional customers or growing or even doing it in the first place outweigh the benefits that that we'll obtain from doing that. And we'll look clearly at how we mitigate those risks and keep a review of those risks over time. So we'll look at that, or we do look at that, I should say, every time when we're setting up those, but we also monitor those risks as those businesses develop in a pretty sort of fluid way to make sure that should those risks grow, should markets change, for example, some customer needs will change post-COVID than they were pre-COVID, then we'll pick up what those risks are and we'll look at how we mitigate those.
Thanks.
Great, thanks for that, James. I believe Councillor Everard is next. Councillor Everard.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on assets, and clearly we've got to make as much money out of our assets as possible. However, I belong to a group that we run the Glebe Community Hall, and we give an excellent service to the community. We've spent quite a lot of capital we got a lease on this with the council, but we spent a lot of capital on improvements and so on. Really, we're acting on behalf of the council to deliver its services, but I wouldn't like any change in the relationship that we have with the BDC. We manage at the moment, and I wouldn't want it to change. Thank you.
James, I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Everard. Absolutely. Assets range across a number of different areas. So we have community assets where they are delivered to support clearly the needs of the community, and they won't be focused around revenue generation. There'll be assets where we are supporting areas such as Enterprise Centre, where we can generate revenue and do good at the same time, and that really is kind of the key focus around commercialisation for us at Braintree and in the public sector, is doing good and generating revenue. But there will be key assets, and I should say right at the outset, I'm not an assets expert or represent asset management, but there are key assets which are there to support the community, and that's as it should be, and a key role of Braintree District Council and indeed other councils.
James, just sorry to interrupt you. Could you come off screen, please? That screen share. I mean, so that we can see everybody now that you're finished. Thank you. It's better. We can see everybody now.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, that answer. It's very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So I believe Councillor Rose is next. Councillor Rose.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Question for James and a request, really. Quite interested in the 4 groups that you've created, James, to assist the embedding into the culture. Would it be your intention to report back to this committee in 6 months as to the success of that project and what they've come up with, or would it go to Cabinet and then ultimately to full council? Thank you.
Sorry, can I just please remind members, you're here as a scrutiny committee looking into this subject. You're not actually here as a reporting committee. So just to sort of support James, unless there was a requirement in terms of the recommendations from the scrutiny review, there is no requirement for any reporting to be brought back to this committee. So just want to make sure members remind themselves in the context in which you're receiving this information. You're not here, you're here to scrutinise what the authority is doing. Obviously, if you want more information about how those panels work and in their relationship in delivering the commercialisation agenda, then of course that's something that will come back to you as evidence. But this committee can't require those groups to report back to this committee out of the context of a scrutiny review. I hope that assists.
Okay, thank you, Emma. I believe that almost concludes the questions on the list. Emma, have I missed anybody?
No, Chairman, you have got everybody who's currently indicated on the list.
I see. Right. Okay. I guess, James, one of the questions that I might like to add is that, you know, what more could be done what can be done differently? Obviously, there's an awful lot being done. That's absolutely sure. A lot of very good, positive stuff. But in terms of any potential barriers to moving this forward, do you see what do you see in terms of that help as a barrier to delivering the commercialisation? I guess.
I think. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. I think actually it's pretty good at the moment. Really, we have senior management support for taking forward the investment and development programme, which includes commercialisation. So there are a lot of open doors in that respect. So that's fantastic. I think probably it's getting ideas and having the time and the resource to be able to take forward those ideas could be a barrier. As you know, the organisation is busy. It's busy doing things, and actually, I think what we have to do is really sort of target in on those really key ideas and take those forward and sort of build a pipeline really of other activities which can support that. Of activities going forward which we will explore when we get the resource and time to do that. So I think probably resource and time is a bit of a barrier there, but as it would with any organisation. And I think what we will need to make sure of is that we've got the kind of right structures in place to be able to deliver traded services, track them, and grow them. So there's conversations that I'm having currently with colleagues across the council about how we do that and what the right model is for that. But I think really it's probably quite an exciting time for commercial at the moment, because we have an agenda in terms of meeting that challenge. We have an opportunity for through those 4 groups to really engage the organisation in doing that. So I think hopefully that should deliver a really good, strong result. But I'll update you as we go to see how that works.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So I have no more questions in the chat box, I don't think. So before we bring this evidence gathering session to a close, do any members have any further questions that they would like to ask James? No? Okay. Okay, well, thank you, members. This concludes the evidence gathering session. Thank you very much to James. We are very grateful for your time this evening and for the presentation that you have provided. I know there's a lot of work went into that, and it was a very comprehensive presentation for us. So, James, you're welcome to stay, or indeed you're also welcome to leave if you so wish. So again, our thanks to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks very much. I shall leave. If that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So, members, then, based upon the information gathered, we now need to consider any further lines of inquiry we wish to pursue in order to inform our scrutiny review. Do members have any suggestions? If so, please indicate in the chat function if you wish to speak. I do. Oh, okay. Just thank you to James. I don't.
Chairman, Councillor Swears indicated that he
Oh,
wishes
okay,
to speak,
Councillor
please.
Swear. Yeah. Okay. Over to you, sir. I think you're on mute, sir.
Thank you. I just wonder whether it may be an opportunity for the Scrutiny Committee to potentially invite in an expert or two, maybe in the relevant field of what we're scrutinising, maybe in traded waste services or advertising, to see whether we are actually pursuing best in class, and if we can improve that coming back into the council.
Yeah, that sounds a good suggestion. One of the other things that I think a few of us alluded to or mentioned on the way through is that is understanding what some of the net benefits of some of these initiatives are. And in the presentation, I think we've had some indication on what the revenue benefits are, but not necessarily what the net benefit of some of those projects are. So perhaps that's an area we could ask for a bit more information. And also, when you look at the programme, the strategic investment and asset management, you know, they're two pretty heavyweight programmes. And when you look at the level of capital investment we're putting in, it is significant and going to be significant going forward. And I'm wondering if perhaps we could understand a bit better about that. And again, on asset management, some of the returns on those assets that we're getting, I think Councillor Unsworth mentioned it and one or two others,
Chairman, the only thing I would just draw you back to is your terms of reference, because you're looking at the commercialisation rather than any sort of the investment. I know there is that link, but obviously the things that you need to be mindful is the terms of reference. So you need to look at those areas through the lens of those terms of reference. So that's something that we can sort of explore. Obviously James has left the meeting now, and as the lead officer we can explore those further with him to see what we can achieve, so the scrutiny review remains on track rather than get sidelined into what is clearly a very interesting and a very important area of the council's work and ambitions going forward. So we will make a note of that, those aspects, but again, it's been clear that you need to look at those through the lens of your terms of reference that you've agreed. Obviously, there is always the opportunity for incidental information to come in to help you form a view on those areas. But you know, it's proper that you are reminded that you have got terms for this review going forward. But we can certainly speak to the relevant officers to see if there is a witness that we can bring forward to a committee at a later date, or whether there is any documentation which we can share with the committee that sets out that information that's already within the council's library of resources of documents and committee reports, etc.
Okay, all right. So Councillor Unsworth, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. I just wonder if we could ask for a bit more information on the impact of on the commercialisation on staff. I think it's been touched on. Obviously, as they start to get busier, there will be an impact on staff, and so something timeline based as to what the overall impact on staff would be with officers and staff within the council as these services get busier, and that they don't detract from our core services, so that we've always got cover there. So something along the lines of the impact on staffing, staff costs and staff availability, especially having, coming out through COVID with the difficulties that the council's experienced itself. I just think that might be something, certainly I'd like a little bit more information on.
Okay, thank you for that. Has anybody else got anything else they would like to add? So I don't see nothing else in the chat box. So I'll just say thank you for all your suggestions, members, and I'm sure Emma has noted all of these. And we will ask their governance officers to progress our lines of inquiry and report these back to us in due course. I'm not sure if I got a note here, but we did talk earlier, Emma, that there is an opportunity if after this meeting, if you have any particular further points that you would like to put forward after you've had time to digest this and some further thoughts, you're quite welcome to put those forward to Emma. And is it to you, Emma, or is it through?
Yes, Chairman. If members can, once they've sort of digested everything they've heard this evening, and obviously you've got the slides that you can read at leisure, if there's any other lines of inquiry that you feel should go forward for exploration as part of this scrutiny review, then please email them through to the governance email address. Then Jess and I can both pick those up together, and then what we'll do is we'll pull those together, and when we have our meeting with you, Chair, and Peter as Vice Chairman about the programme, then we can pick those up and then start to build those, because there may be common themes through members' thoughts after this meeting that we can consolidate into either getting the right witness to come through a meeting, or that we can look at resourcing documentation that's already in existence and bring that to members' attention. So yes, if once members left this meeting and started to think about the matters that James has set out in his presentations, and obviously you've got the presentation slides to sort of re-examine, then please, you're welcome to send things through to the governance email account, and we'll pick those up. And what we'll do, Chairman, is we'll formulate a list so we can see where common themes are, and then we can start working with James as lead officer to see where we can go with those, and then build that into the programme for the rest of the scrutiny review. Okay. It may be, Chairman, that we may need to set down further meetings of this committee to sort of undertake some more evidence gathering. As you know, this committee also has a workload, so we wouldn't want to overload a particular meeting with you know, a large evidence gathering session along with part of the standard work that comes to this committee. So we will work with yourself and the Vice Chairman and members to look at additional dates if that's necessary to ensure that the scrutiny review is delivered within this civic year.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'll encourage anybody to follow up on that, because the more ideas that we go forward and the more suggestions and the more information we have, so much the better. So members, there are no formal recommendations for this evening on this agenda item. So I will now proceed to item 6, which is the decision planner. Members, you're asked to note the decision planner for the period 1st of June 2021 to 30th of September 2021. Before we do this, do members have any issues that they would like to raise in respect of the decision planner? And if you do, please indicate through the chat function. Okay, Councillor Unsworth.
Me again. Seem to be busy today.
No, it's fine. It's good stuff.
Just quickly, items on the decision planner DP 202 and 16 and 17, 116 and 117, climate change and cycling strategy. They originally came to full council on the previous set of under the previous constitution, and they come to the new council on the 20th under the new constitution, where we're informed that you are not allowed to modify the document, only the amendment and possibly the amendment. I'd just like to know how, maybe it's a question for officers, how the process is going to work with regard to the consultations that are outgoing and with that meeting and any changes that may happen within that meeting. Because the constitution at the moment, as it stands, the revised constitution says they can't be revised in that meeting. Okay. So I'm just a bit concerned that they will not necessarily reflect the consultation that's going on or any comments that might be made in the meeting.
Okay, Chairman, if I can just address this. Okay, so in terms of the decision plan, this comes to this committee for members to be aware of the executive decisions, that's decisions that are taken by Cabinet. So the matters that Councillor Unsworth has referred to are matters which are for full council. Now, this is not strictly a matter for this meeting, but I will just explain further. There has been so at the last Cabinet meeting, the paper is in the public domain. I do apologise, the date has slipped my mind when we last held Cabinet, where there was a request for additional full council to be set down so that there was an opportunity for members to be able to debate the climate change strategy and the cycling strategy in the same ways we had a meeting earlier in this year. The cycling strategy and cycling strategy are out to consultation, so it's premature for me to be able to advise in this meeting how those meetings will proceed, but we will issue further guidance to all members as to how those meetings will be conducted, because there will be extraordinary meetings of full council. So at the moment, those documents are out to consultation. Once those consultations have concluded, then the officers will start formulating their reports. And it's when we get to that point, we will be able to advise members how they are able to influence and debate those matters going forward. But at this stage, I cannot be be so precise with the advice going forward, but this will be a matter that's relevant to all members outside this committee, and that information will be shared with all members in due course. So I apologise, I can't give you a this is how it will happen, because at this time it's premature to give that advice because the documents are still out for consultation, and officers will be working pretty swiftly after the close of the consultation to look at all those responses and to consolidate and consider those and present a report to full council in due course.
Lovely, thank you. I presume my question will get noted in the minutes, will it?
Not necessary, Councillor Unsworth, because you haven't asked for it to be requested and it technically falls outside the scope of this committee's functions. But I will pick that up with you outside if I may.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emma, for responding to Councillor Andrews' question there and taking that outside of the meeting. So I see there are no further questions in the chat box. So I will then therefore take your silence as assent for noting the decision planner. Okay. No dissent, so yes. So therefore, thank you, member. The decision planner has been noted. Okay, members, there is no urgent business for this evening, and this item concludes our business for this evening. So I will close the meeting of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee at 20:58. Thank you for your attendance at this meeting, and for those watching the broadcast via the Council's YouTube channel. I will now hand you back to the meeting facilitator.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, before we terminate the broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, I'd just like to remind members that we will retain in performance data to your connection to this meeting. We hold this in just in case we have a legal challenge. Could I please ask the webcasting officer to terminate the broadcast and confirm, please?